From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefanía Bravo. This is From the South, and a special welcome to our viewers in Antigua and Barbuda. Venezuela is gearing up for the start of the electoral campaign that will be a race between 5 contenders. President Nicolás Maduro has urged the United Nations to select a delegation of observers that clarify the transparency of the process. He believes the U.S. is pressuring the international body to not do so. Meanwhile, the special period opened by the National Electoral Council for registration continues, and the final list of citizens entitled to vote will be published on March 26th. The 3-day event, We Are All Venezuela, came to a close with hundreds of participants from across the world. President Nicolás Maduro presided over the closing ceremony, calling for the people to defend their rights. He says the best is yet to come.
The task of building countries that are free and that are independent, the task of building a new economy that's heading towards socialism, it is still to be done. What we have done so far is demonstrating that the socialist systems, in every aspect of the spiritual, cultural, moral, and human life of our people, politically is superior than anything that could have seen before or that we will see. Our bet is for the future of the peoples. It should not be a remembrance. It is the future, not the past. We cannot continue crying. We need to use the image of our heroes and martyrs into strength and energy for what's going to be built in the future. Because what's going to come is way bigger than what we have done as of today.
Social organizations that took part in the 3-day event signed the so-called Declaration of Caracas in support of Venezuela. They also rejected the interference of the United States.
Repudiamos enérgicamente la gravísima escalada de agresiones contra la democracia y la soberanía de Venezuela por parte del gobierno guerrerista de Donald Trump, los poderes corporativos globales y el aparato industrial y militar del imperialismo estadounidense que pretenden derrocar al gobierno legítimo de Venezuela, destruir el proyecto de democracia bolivariana y apropiarse
Bolivarian democracy and take over the resources of the Venezuelan nation.
The empowerment of women was another key topic at the We Are All Venezuela event, a timely discussion on International Women's Day. We sat down for an exclusive interview with Radaka Walbens from Trinidad and Tobago's Movement for Social Justice. That's a party born out of the trade union movement and which has long been in solidarity with Cuba and Venezuela. She said Venezuela has always been progressive when it comes to women's rights.
They were really talking about the empowerment of women and the space that Chavez have created for them and allow them to develop their families, and healthcare was critical. And even for the disabled, they created a card system where they can track, not a political tracking, but a social tracking of how that person's life is improving, or are they being taken advantage of in terms of the resources. Healthcare was given door to door. It was amazing what has been done as opposed to what we are hearing on the outside. The history of Latin America is unique in terms of the religious influences, and women were always seen and treated as marginalized. And what the Chavez government did, the Bolivarian government did, is that they give women recognition, they empower the women and give them a space in which to operate. They empower them in their own communities. And remember, women are caretakers. And if they don't have the resources to care for who they're responsible for, it's a challenge. So Chavez saw that vacuum And he felt it with a passion also. And even in Cuba, they did the same. They reached out to those people who are caregivers, and they empower them through education and resources that they then have an obligation that they want that system to continue.
Sure.
Because then they can see a future for their children and their grandchildren. So that is why women are so powerful in Venezuela.
Yeah.
Across Latin America, tributes have been paid to Hugo Chavez on the 5th anniversary of his death. In Bolivia, the authorities, diplomatic corps, and social movements remembered the ideas and legacy of the Bolivarian Revolution's leader. The anniversary of Chavez's death was commemorated with floral offerings and an ancestral ceremony by an Aymara priest and priestess. The event took place in the cultural center of San Francisco in La Paz. State ministers, ambassadors, along with military and police chiefs attended the tribute. Chavez was remembered as one of the main defenders of Latin American unity. 5 years ago, Hugo Chavez's death, people remember him because of his efforts towards integration across Latin America. In Brazil, intellectuals consider his work with ex-president Lula da Silva defending national sovereignty as one of the most important.
One of them knew poverty in Barinas, the other one in Pernambuco. The first started his struggle in the military, the other as a blacksmith. Both of them were presidents of countries doomed by colonial underdevelopment.
It brought hope back, a fight for own resources. If the people don't own their own resources, they are not sovereign. That is what Lula did, as well as Chavez, Evo, Rafael Correa. They worked. Kirchner did the same in Argentina, looking to strengthen continental union.
For the coordinator of the landless Brazilians movement, Da Silva and Chavez were aligned in their fight for the people of Latin America.
I have very good memories of how nice they were as politicians. They weren't leaders distant from the misunderstood people. They lived very close to social groups of Puerto Alegre. When Chavez started the 21st century socialism idea, the World Social Forum in Belém, along with Lula, Lugo, Correa, Evo, that was very important. I think both of them left a great legacy by showing us the way to face Latin American problems with processes of integration.
One of the most important works of the Lula-Chavez team was the rejection of ALCA against George Bush in Mar del Plata. Together, they moved to stop imperialism.
We have been accused of so many things, and I know that behind that there is a deep laughter in this continent. Because, as Comrade Lula said one day, those who know Chavez and have lived with him know that Venezuela has too much democracy, which is a metaphor because there is never too much democracy.
Fate saw both ex-presidents fight against cancer. The death of Chavez touched the hearts of the world as well as Lula da Silva's.
He cared about the interests of Venezuela, Latin America, and most of all of the poor. I think that not every century we can find a man as good as Chavez. Not every day a country chooses a person so close to his people.
In spite of coups and neoliberal progress in the region, the legacy of these two great political leaders of Latin American history remains in different countries, which saw social achievements grow beyond borders.
Venezuela's foreign ministry released a communique on Wednesday reporting to statements made by the UN High Commission for Human Rights. In the communique, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela rejected statements by UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zeid Ra'ad al-Hussein, on democracy and the enforcement of human rights, also saying that irresponsible declarations of an interventionist nature are often preceded by meetings with extreme sectors of the Venezuelan opposition. There have been protests in Chile over the signing of the renewed Trans-Pacific Partnership deal. Protesters define it as a modern slavery agreement and warn about the negative effects the pact entails. In Santiago, around 300 protesters gathered outside the foreign ministry, exhibiting numerous placards against the deal. They say the agreement will increase inequality and it will have a negative impact over citizens' health, nutrition, or the right to information. The pact affects 500 million people and represents 13% of the world's gross domestic product.
This is like a gateway for Monsanto in all its magnitude, for hydroelectric to extract everything they want to extract. There will also be problems with medication, as there will be no generic medications.
11 countries will sign the pact in Santiago, Chile today. They say the agreement will cut trade tariffs significantly and boost economic growth. The United States is notably absent from the agreement after U.S. President Donald Trump pulled out of negotiations at the 11th hour. Canada is building on the momentum right off the back of TPP. It will start formal trade negotiations with Mercosur, that is the trade bloc made up of Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Cuba holds its legislative elections on Sunday. Laura Prada brings us the latest in the upcoming elections from Havana.
3 days are left for Cubans to go to elections this 11th of March. More than 8 million Cubans are called to exercise the right to vote. Also, these double elections, Cubans will be choosing from 605 candidates to the deputies for the parliament and 1,265 delegates for the provincial assemblies. The polling stations will be open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the afternoon. We'll continue informing you what is going on here in Cuba.
The Food and Agricultural Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean is beginning its final day in Jamaica. 33 countries have been meeting to develop an agenda to fight hunger and malnutrition in the region. During the regional forum, ministers of agriculture and high-level officials of member nations will discuss challenges and priorities related to food and agriculture. They want to ensure regional cooperation on global policies and political issues. Officials of the government. In Colombia, the government is trying to get farmers to stop growing illicit crops. It has started a transition plan for farmers of coca, poppy, and marijuana, but campesinos say the authorities are imposing the measures by force without providing viable alternatives.
Last year, the Colombian government, the FARC, and rural communities began a program for farmers to voluntarily transition from growing illicit crops to legal ones. Like many campesinos, Jose David Hernandez has grown coke since he was very young. This plant has given his family a better future.
I started when I was 11. I grew up in this crop. There were no schools and no jobs. I fell in love with this plant as a campesino because it was the only thing providing jobs at that time.
He says the state has forsaken them and forced them to choose this kind of life. But he says he can't accept the agreement to substitute coke plantations.
We don't want to move to the city. We want to be in the country and have rights as campesinos.
The people want sustainability in whatever they grow next.
It is not enough to give these people food assistance worth 1 million pesos each year. If they live far away without proper roads, technical assistance, without a commercial strategy for their products, none of this is catered to in the Havana agreements.
The lack of products and services make it easier to be threatened by armed groups. Last year, 27 members of COCAM were killed.
There are open investigations, no news of criminals, and no major advances have been made to identify the perpetrators.
In spite of the difficulties, campesinos agreed to move forward with the replacement of crops as one of the peace agreements.
In Brazil, the landless workers' movement, the MST, has occupied a farm allegedly belonging to President Michel Temer. Around 350 members took part in the event. The farm is registered to Argeplan, a company belonging to João Bautista Lima Filho, a personal friend of Brazilian President Michel Temer. The protesters demanded that the farm and all land acquired by illegal means are designated for Brazil's agrarian reform program. The Salvadoran people are celebrating after news Monsignor Oscar Romero will become a saint. Pope Francis declared the slain Monsignor will be canonized later this year.
A joyful mass celebrated the announcement of the decree that recognizes the miracle of Monsignor Oscar Arnulfo Romero. Cardinal Gregorio Rosa Chavez said that the news is a good chance for the country to achieve peace.
It's such great news, like light that makes us see a bright future, to get out of our little domestic disputes and acknowledge the people who are suffering and that want to live in peace and justice.
Monsignor Romero was beatified because of his martyrdom in a ceremony in San Salvador in May 2015. On his homilies, Saint Romero denounced the crimes by the military governments. He died as a martyr by odio a la fe on March 24, 1980. He was assassinated during a mass by death squads linked to the far-right wing of the country.
It's unbelievable, but the murder hasn't been investigated officially. The murderers have not been punished. It's unbelievable, but that is how it is. The government, which was ruling, then rejected its responsibility.
The Congregation for the Cause of Vatican Saints recognized the martyr's second miracle, which was attributed to his intervention when a pregnant woman and her child were expected to die. Both mother and child survived.
The governor of Puerto Rico, Ricardo Rosello, has announced a new budget of $300,000 for the high-performance sports program, which will benefit 32 elite athletes. The funds will help potential athletes who have the opportunity to participate in the 2018 Central American and Caribbean Games and the Olympic Games of Tokyo 2020. In Bolivia, female artists are taking workshops to learn how to best add their knowledge to Wikipedia. Freddy Morales reports on efforts to make women heard.
Although anyone can edit material on Wikipedia, most of the content on Bolivia is generated by foreign contributors.
Wikipedia is a global source of information, and we believe Bolivia and the Spanish sphere in general should have a say. Most of the Wikipedia content is generated in English, and then it gets translated into Spanish.
This workshop, aimed at female artists, is pushing for the creation of more native articles from Bolivia.
There are more articles about our country in German than in Spanish, so we think it is the right time to change this.
The goal is to push these women to share their knowledge with the world. This initiative is also a way to promote the feminist movement. Knowing the Wikipedia editing tools becomes fundamental.
We have all used Wikipedia at some point. Some of us even clicked on the top right, where the edit option is. We are allowed to improve any article and also add more references.
Carla is a literature student who is already creating new stories and new versions of all stories for the virtual encyclopedia.
I have written about relevant Bolivian women in the 19th century. There was not much information about them.
67% of Bolivians have access to the internet, so institutions are promoting it as a means to increase citizens' participation. The goal is to make Bolivians switch from consumers to producers of quality content on the web.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
Contentísima, súper orgullosa de poder conseguir este logro para mi país, para mí, para la gente que me sigue. Un trabajo bastante fuerte, de mucho tiempo para poder llegar hasta este momento. Lo anhelaba, lo ansiaba, recuperar y revalidar mi título como campeona de... Para mí es un honor trabajar con él y seguir trabajando. Espero seguir a su lado. Bueno, el presidente Hugo Chávez fue un pilar fundamental para el deporte en mi país. Impulsó muchos métodos para que el deporte llegara a los más bajos niveles y que los niños siempre vieran que el deporte era importante para la salud, para los valores humanos.
Welcome back. In Spain, a general strike has been called for International Women's Day. Let's hear more from our correspondent.
Saludos a toda nuestra audiencia desde Madrid, pues por primera vez.
For the first time in Spain's history, there will be a lawful general strike on March 8th, International Women's Day. Women will be protesting against the wage gap, the glass ceiling, harassment in the workplace and gender violence. This strike is taking place in over 40 countries and is calling for equality of opportunity and conditions. Political parties in Spain have had mixed reactions to the strike. Podemos is the only party that fully supports it, while the Socialist Party supports a partial strike. The Conservative parties, Partido Popular and Ciudadanos, have chosen to disassociate themselves from the strike. March 8th will prove to be a special day, not just because of the strike, but because of the expected discussions regarding women's rights. There's been a call for homemakers, teachers and students to join in. Finally, this is also a consumer strike, with women being asked to not buy any goods throughout the day.
The U.S. government has softened its stance on tariffs on metal imports. It says Canada and Mexico may be exempt from duties on national security grounds. However, reports suggest the exemption may only last for 30 days. The backpedaling in policy comes amid threats from its trade partners who are unhappy about President Donald Trump's protectionist policies. Last week, Trump announced a 25% tariff on steel and 10% tax on aluminum imports. He is expected to sign the new tariff plan by the end of the week. Market analysts have warned this would lead to an unprecedented trade war. China has shown it will not accept the tariffs laid down. The Chinese Foreign Ministry Wang Yi said the two sides should find a mutually beneficial solution. However, he says there will be an appropriate response if Trump insists on the metal tariffs.
Many people are concerned about the trade friction between China and the US. I would like to say history showed that trade wars were not the correct way to resolve problems, especially given today's globalization. Choosing a trade war is a wrong move. The outcome will only be harmful. China will have to make a justified and necessary response.
An annual elephant polo event has been organized in Thailand's capital, Bangkok. Dozens of elephants participated in the tournament, which is aimed at boosting awareness about elephants. The organizers also hope to raise funds to help domesticated elephants. There are almost 4,000 domesticated elephants in Thailand. Many are often abandoned because it is too expensive to take care of them. And we've come to the end of this morning's news brief. These and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.